cool to read that.
Yep.
All right, we're going live.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Debra Valentina, holistic coach, owner of Creativing, and an interviewer for the Centers for Spiritual Living After Lunch Special Series. And welcome, Meghann. I am so happy that today we get to dialogue to nourish mind and spirit. For those of you who are watching now or later, I'd like to introduce you to my fabulous guest, Meghann Conter. So Meghann is the founder of the Dames, an international community that celebrates and connects high-level female leaders in nonprofits, small businesses, corporations, and government organizations. And by leveraging her 17 years of marketing expertise, Meghann empowers these women to leap over their revenue targets, grow personally and professionally, as well as to form meaningful collaborative relationships. So Meghann is a champion of connection, and I can certainly vouch for that. She believes that anything can be accomplished through fearless collaboration, laughter, and love. So welcome again, Meghann.
Thank you, Debra.
Yeah, you're welcome. So to get started, I'd love to have you share with our audience a little bit more about the Dames organization.
Absolutely. I've had my own business since 2009. So I started it during the last big kerflump, I'll just say, in our country in the height of the recession, and learned a lot in those first 5 years about resilience. And also in that process of growing my marketing business, started my spiritual journey. So I'm very familiar with and love the work that the Centers for Spiritual Living does and that the Science of Mind does, because I really feel like I found myself and I found my purpose when I finally connected to my own spirituality. So that journey was very simultaneous and in conjunction for me with my journey and growth in my business. So I was doing a lot of personal growth as well as professional growth at the same time. And that is something that I have definitely really embedded into the foundation of the Dames, that I believe that we can't grow professionally and sustainably if we're not also, we can't grow sustainably professionally if we're not also growing personally at the same time. So yeah, I know you know.
I would definitely agree with that. And you just, I'm having a memory flashback of I've been in business for 34 years. And at the same time, I was on my, and continue to be on my spiritual journey right alongside. So thank you for, starting off with that.
Absolutely. And what I really found in growing my marketing business was that I was trying to grow it oftentimes in a very heady way. I was doing it by reading a lot of business books and working with various coaches and, joining various traditional groups. And I found myself always pushing really hard and trying really hard, but not really feeling like I was in flow. And so I did become part of a great business mastermind in about 2014. And I'm sitting there in one of the meetings with 24 of my colleagues who I'd become very close with. And I knew that I wanted to create something that was very different from the traditional networking that was available out there. I found that when I went to networking events, most of the time, it was difficult for me to find my peers, those who were running their own 6-figure or 7-figure businesses. It was difficult for me to find them out in normal networking land. And also, I found that when I would find them and I would walk up to them and start talking to them, they were mostly exhausted because, traditionally speaking, they were the only one in the room. They were the smartest one in the room who felt like they had always had their brains picked. So no wonder they didn't want to be out networking anymore. What I found often was a lot of people who were brand new to business, who were maybe in direct sales business models, but there weren't a lot of those high performers. And I also found most of the networking to be ultimately boring. And I'm a person who really loves to be entertained. I love to laugh. I love the joy and the expression of laughter in my life. And so I've just started getting curious, and I asked other women who are high performing if they felt the same way. So in 2015, I launched our first Denver Dames events here in Denver. And we always have had events for 6- and 7-figure women, as well as those in director, VP, and C-suite positions of larger organizations. And we've always had a humor first approach. So we always have a humorist, as in a comedian or an improv troupe, that comes and really helps us break our hearts open and laugh so that we can connect more authentically. And what I can tell you about the Dames and the growth journey that I've been on with this business is that it has been very spirit-led for me. I have always sat in quiet meditation and connecting with my higher self to get all of the downloads and the messages, including the name, the Dames, and including the structure of rebranding from Denver Dames to the Dames in 2017, including the vision of having a virtual network of globally connected, high-performing women, including launching our online chapter. Everything that has been born in this business has been born through connection to my higher self. And I have felt nothing but flow the entire time. So it's this very fluid, guided business, as opposed to the marketing business, which tended to be this, worked at, strenuous, didn't really often feel very fluid. And so that's what I'm most grateful for.
Beautiful. It's so well expressed. So I'm a member of the Dames, and I just want to say that up front, and love the organization. But when you think about your Dames members, what do you think that they most appreciate about being part of the organization?
I think it depends on where they are in their lives, where they are in their careers, where they're coming from, even globally. But I think that what we have seen is most reflected back to us is the appreciation for the strategic matchmaking that we do. Because when you go into most organizations, you walk into a room and you feel like, man, I don't know anyone, let alone who do I communicate with? Am I going to, oftentimes after you've networked for a while, you get tired of the fact that you have to meet with 10 or 12 people before you get to someone who could potentially even be a strategic connection for you. And so I wanted to cut all of that time out because we're busy professionals. We are those who have a lot going on. And so we need to cut to the chase. And then we need to spend the time where the time needs to be spent, which is in building the relationships with the people we meet. So I know that you experienced this, Debra, at your first event.
Absolutely, I did.
Tell what you thought about that. So it comes from you.
Well, great. I was, first of all, as soon as I walked into the room, I felt a lightheartedness, which the energy was so vastly different from the other networking organizations that I've been a part of. So that was one thing. And then you had already connected me with another gal who was a perfect connection. And then I couldn't find her. And so one of your staff actually helped me find her within the first 3 minutes of being there. And, I was just absolutely thrilled. The other thing that I would say, and now that you've interviewed me a little bit, is that the humor part of it, I laughed straight for 2 hours, and I was so high, really, high from giddiness when I was leaving. So, and as you know, I enrolled the very first night that I went to your event. So, so the other question I have back at you, Meghann, is what do you find most rewarding for you in leading the BAMES organization?
Well, I would have to say it's reflected in what you just said. When I get women who come to me and say whether they have joined us from an in-person chapter or whether they've joined us in our virtual chapter, where they can come in from anywhere around the world and apply. And if they're a revenue and a culture fit, we want them to be in this organization. But my favorite thing to hear is, wow, Meghann, the strategic connections you made have resulted in some of the best power partnerships, the best friendships, the most business, the most high quality business that I've ever received. And that is what really makes my heart sing. It's that ability to hear what we've created is doing for people, doing for women in their businesses. And also, I have to say that, we mentioned this on the Zoom call earlier, that I spend my days on Zoom, and I get to Zoom around the world, having a call, first thing in the morning with a woman in Australia, and then having several calls with women in Colorado and California and all over the United States. And then later in the afternoon, I'll have calls with women in Australia and women in Europe, all over the place. And that's my favorite thing. I get to travel the globe without leaving my seat. And then, of course, once all of this is over, I actually get to really physically travel, which makes my heart sing. So that's my favorite, is just the connections that I get to make, and then the connections that in turn I make with everyone else in the organization and that my team makes for everybody else.
And you do it very well, because you have introduced me to I'm thinking a dozen people already, and all of them were perfect matches. So speaking of Zoom and technology, perfect segue, which is, I know that you've been doing most of your training and networking events online for a couple of years now, which is, I consider, ahead of the curve for sure. And so I'm wanting to know a little bit about kind of how did it happen that you are ahead of the curve?
Yeah. So as we kept expanding out of the event spaces that we were having our events at back in, this was like 2016 and 2017, I was sitting a lot in meditation and asking, what's next? What is my next big move? Because I had this feeling that there was something that was changing. And I immediately had the sense, I get my intuition through the feeling of knowing. And I had this sense of, this is going to be a global network, and it's time to start that now. And so I knew that was going to have to be through virtual ways. And so I was like, okay, here's some of my initial ideas. I know that I want professional and personal growth available. I know that I want our members to tell us what kinds of trainings they want. I know that I want virtual happy hours, because what else is more happy than getting a bunch of women together to talk about business and to make connections? And I knew that I wanted to have the inspiration from our dames of influence who run 7-figure businesses, so that we can learn from those who've been there, done that. And so those things came very easily, again, in my sitting quiet and creating space for these downloads to come through. And so it was a matter of listening to that intuition and taking action, because I know that those messages that I get from guidance are exactly what I need to do, exactly when I get them.
Yeah, absolutely. And so aren't you happy that you did it when you did, because you are
Amen, sister.
Definitely using it now. So I'm wondering, about you, what you've learned doing your events online that you could pass on to those in our audience who really want to do more of it and increase their capacity in this area?
Yeah, I mean, I think the most important thing is to really truly get comfortable with the idea that you can connect with someone just as deeply through a platform like this as you can in person. And I think you remember, because I'm pretty sure you commented on that post that I did in our Facebook group saying, you know, are you someone who already knows that energy is energy and that we can connect virtually the same as we can in person? Or are you someone who's trying to learn that and trying to embody that? Or are you someone who just doesn't believe that at all and it's not going to happen for you? And I had, you know, most people who were in the option A or B categories, but that's been my belief from the very beginning is I know that energy is energy and that I can make a deep connection with you, which, you know, we've learned most about each other doing Zoom. We haven't really gotten to
Exactly.
spend that much time in person. And there are women around the country that are part of the dames that I've never met in person and may never meet. But we have some of the best, deepest relationships that I have in my life. And that's been the way that it has been for me since I started my social media consulting business in 2009. So that's number one, is that you have to have the mindset of the possibility of being able to be connected. And then number two, whether it's virtual or in person, the more strategic of an approach that you have to your community building, the better. So my philosophy, and the one that I teach at the Dames and that our team teaches, is that you don't network for looking for your end clients, because what that does is it creates an energy of desperation, of lack of abundance, you know, of scarcity, and it creates an all around icky feeling when you're going around, we like to say business card stabbing or drive-by networking. It creates this atmosphere of negativity and just not abundance, right? It doesn't create the high vibration that everyone comes to expect at Dames events. And so the more strategic you can be in transforming your philosophy of networking from one of looking for your target audience to one of looking for your strategic power partners, you're going to be much more successful. And so as you're going through this period and you're starting to get more and more familiar with the virtual world, my biggest recommendation to you would be figure out who those power partners are. Figure out the people who already work with your target audience in a different capacity than you and have those trusted relationships built. Or maybe there's someone who does pretty much the same thing that you do, but they have a different target audience that they serve, excuse me. Those are the kinds of people you want to build relationships with. And every single one of us in our web, in our connections, has centers of influence. So reach out to those centers of influence, make sure that you've been in contact with them, of course, but then ask them if they would connect you with some of those power partners that you need to have in your network in order to really grow your business and in order to build quality referral type relationships with those people, and then go out and build those relationships. Right now is the perfect time to do so and build them authentically. I was on a call earlier today with a woman who had a 3-year-old, and she said, I apologize if he runs in on the call. And I said, why would you apologize? It's what our life is. And I'm grateful that I get to see behind the curtain and see behind the facade of what we're normally projecting as our identity that's not really our true identity.
Yeah.
So
Very sage advice. Thank you so much. And as we need to wrap up, and we'll wrap up right now, what would you like our audience to remember regarding the Danes, and where can they find more information?
Yeah, if they know a woman who has been looking for her peers for a while now, and no matter where she is in the world, but if she runs her own 6 or 7 figure business, or she's in a director, VP, or C-suite position at a large organization, please send her to thedames.co. There's no M at the end, thedames.co, and she can find out more about our virtual membership or our in-person chapters there. And we also have a global 5-year anniversary celebration coming up on June 10th.
Thank you. So it's thedames.co, again, thedames.co. So thank you again, Meghann, for sharing your passion about the dames and all your wisdom. So before signing off, I'd like to share with you, the audience, an exciting professional development opportunity. It's presented by the Centers for Spiritual Living Education Department, and it's called Advance and Thrive Technology Series. And it's designed, of course, to maximize the use of technology, and so timely. So the classes continue this summer and fall, and you can find details as well as you can register for the classes at shop.csl.org/classes. Again, it's shop.csl.org/classes. So thank you all for joining us today, and please join us next Tuesday at 1:30 Mountain Time as the after lunch special series continues with Reverend Karen Wilson interviewing the writer Jeff Seeley.